And to finish up the Farmer Rapid Fire, we go into Brandon, Manitoba. And of course, Farmer Rapid Fire is brought to you by Pioneer Seeds Canada. And right now we're joined by area agronomist Derwyn Hammond with Pioneer Seeds Canada. Hey, Derwyn, how's it going?
Hey, Sean, it's great to be here. Glad to join you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before we get into some of the topics we're going to chat about here today, how's the moisture conditions out there in Brandon?
Um, I would say pretty good. We've had some recent rainfall, so it's been lighter rains that I don't think are going to stall guys for too long if we can get a few sunny days in a row. But it's just been kind of keeping guys out of the field. But I think as far as moisture for planting, we're in a pretty good spot around here right now. So,
Okay, well, that's good to hear. Stand establishment. I know we want to cover this because it's so critical to get that crop off to a very, very even, consistent start. And when we're looking at that stand, we also have to not only be careful about to do all the things possible to ensure that we get the best stand we can, but also to review what actually happened. Correct?
yeah, that's really key. And so I guess my advice right now around here with guys having been a bit delayed and it's starting to feel like maybe we're running a little behind the schedule we were hoping for as far as getting stuff in the ground. It provides that incentive to want to speed up a little in the field and maybe not take time to get out and check that depth of placement and ensure that that planting equipment's achieving what you were shooting for.
Yeah.
But precise placement's really key, and that consistency of that depth of placement. So whether you're planting shallow now because you've got some moisture to work with, that if you have too much variation in that, those shallowest seeds are likely to get stranded till the next round of rain that we get. That might be 2 weeks from now, and now you've got those late emergers that really make it a challenge as you move forward and manage the crop throughout the rest of the season. And if you are planting deeper in some areas of the prairies where you haven't maybe gotten some of these rains, obviously those deepest planted seeds may never make it out of the ground. So whether you're planting deep or shallow, consistent placement's key. And the other thing is, I just always recommend don't target the minimum acceptable plant stand as your target with your seeding rate. Shoot for the middle, give yourself some margin for error. Thin stands or vulnerable stands. So we know we can get away with 4 or 5 plants per square foot in canola as an example and still get a good crop, but we're vulnerable to the stresses throughout the rest of the season, weed competition, insect damage, all of those things that a lower population to start with means we're more vulnerable for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier. Mark McLean from Ontario, and we were talking about the calendar. And you get to certain points and you feel like it's in your favor, and then it kind of feels like it's working against you. It can really play on your mind, and you got to be disciplined about it.
Yeah, exactly right. You only get one chance to put the crop in the ground each year, and doing a good job of it the first time usually pays dividends throughout the rest of the season.
Well, and I won't profess to be an agronomist like yourself, but I do know a few things. And early weed control is critical, super important. And the longer we leave those weeds, I'll just wait if you get a little bit bigger and make sure a few more will emerge, and I'll get them all at one, in that at that one time. It you can be hurting yourself, right? Early weed control's just so important, especially as it correlates to yield.
Well, there's definitely lots of research with pretty much every crop showing that those weeds competing with the crop as it's emerging when it's young and the most vulnerable, that weed competition early costs you the most. So the thing I've been talking to a lot of guys around this area with the delays in planting, it's tempting to seed first, and I'll do that burn off treatment to clean things up if I get the chance before it gets out of the ground. Uh, it ties you into that window, and with our prospects, our product that we use that we have available as a tank mix partner for burn offs in front of canola and corn, we've done a lot of work with it in the last couple of years, looking at that, and we've really learned that a half a day ahead of the planting equipment is performs much better than a day behind.
Huh.
Even with a low disturbance planting planter or a disc planter, we still do enough damage to those weeds that the efficacy does drop off. And
Wow.
so, you know, you're probably better off to take that half day at time, clean it up first, and then come in behind it with the planting equipment. Just the efficacy is going to be better.
The other thing early in the season here is scouting for pests. Any tips or things we need to make sure we got on top of our mind as we're out there and we're looking for those flea beetles and all the other things that are trying to take away some of our yield?
And though that's probably the one that comes up the most consistently across the prairies is flea beetles in canola. And certainly with the cooler weather in the forecast here, they get more mobile in the high teens and 20-degree weather and more active. So they'll tend to stay closer to the ground. The windy conditions we've been having in a lot of areas will also keep them feeding on the bottom of the cotyledons or down on the stems of the plants where it's a little hidden and not as obvious, and but potentially can cause more harm to those small cotyledon seedlings as they're coming up. Um, all the effective seed treatments, they all require the flea beetles to take a bite. So some damage is inevitable as we control them with those seed treatments, but we need to keep an eye on that plant and make sure we don't get past that 25% leaf area loss. That's kind of the threshold for maybe needing a rescue treatment. And that all depends on how fast is the crop growing and adding biomass versus how fast the flea beetles are consuming it. So I tell guys it's a race every year, and anything that dry weather, dry conditions, it's working against the growth rate of that crop. Those are the fields that are going to be most vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong correlation there. Indeed. Hey, as an agronomist, you got to be big. Well, you do have a big smile on your face. I can see you on the Zoom call here, but
Yeah,
good time of year, man.
yeah, you bet. It's always exciting getting that crop in the ground and getting out in the field and starting to work with the next year's crop. So
Absolutely. Hey, Derwyn, thanks for joining us here today in the Farmer Rapid Fire. All the best to you.
you too. Thanks a lot.
As Derwyn Hammond out of Brandon, Manitoba, area agronomist with Pioneer Seeds Canada. If you have any feedback on today's show, send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio. And we'll, of course, chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.